Speaking of fascinating conversations, it's time for a chat with Pat.
Yeah, and today we have with us Peter Giersch. He's had a really interesting life, a varied career, business, academia, and the arts. Currently, he is the founder and CEO of the Giersch Group, and he's published devotional books, Catholic devotional books, member of Legatus. I could go on and on. But today we're talking about a book that's out called Talking of Michelangelo. Welcome, Peter. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Pat? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, man. Peter, I know, and I'll let the audience know that if you want to hear a full hour on this, listen Monday, the July 27th, The Virtuous Life. I've got a full hour with Peter on this book, and this book is Talking of Michelangelo. So, Peter, I love this book. It's a great book, and I really enjoyed it. So, what was the experience that kind of precipitated the writing of this book?
So the book is about a week I spent in a monastery in France for my 40th birthday, foolishly, maybe naively thinking it was just going to be fun. But the monks at this monastery and this Ignatian retreat, it was a real deal, man. I mean, it was really a serious religious experience and really a crisis of faith for me because, you know, I had to face, well, the subtitle of the book is Death, Judgment, Heaven, and Hell.
Right.
And these monks were into mortal sin and death and judgment, and really, and with the Ignatian exercises, really put me through the paces.
And that really shocked you, didn't it? I mean, I sense that the reason you wanted to do this is you just kind of thought it was a deepening of your faith, but this took you in directions you weren't expecting, correct?
For sure, and I tried to set up the book that way, and as you read it, you know, like the first half of the book is like the trip over there, my weekend in Paris, kind of fun, and you know, sort of, you know, then I get on the train and go down to the Burgundy region down near Dijon, and it's just like, you know, whack, you know, you go into this silence of the monastery is just crushing, and then the monks are like super holy people, and it was. Yeah, it was quite a surprise, in a good way, of course.
Yeah. So, Peter, you mentioned, and that was one of the things that certainly caught my eye too. There's so much in here that you mentioned silence, and you said it wasn't merely an absence of noise; it was the presence of silence. How is the absence of noise and the presence of silence different in your mind?
You know, I think it's a matter sort of which one wins the majority, right? So if you usually have noise and then it's quiet for a minute, your brain doesn't have time to process that. But if you go to a place like this monastery where noise is the exception, right? So which one is the rule? Like silence was the rule there, and every noise sounded like you were firing a cannon off. It was really, really crazy. I still have never experienced anything quite like it.
One of there's so many things in this book that are just wonderful, but you talk about Father Andre, and he said, this is part of one of his quotes, "Remember, the cemeteries are full of important people who couldn't turn off their cell phones." Why did that stick with you? I know why it hit me, but why did it hit you?
Well, it actually, it's still with me, and I've turned it into this phrase that I often say to my kids or my friends: we're all going to be dead someday. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's going to matter is how we treat each other, how we handle what God gives us, and when you ponder the fact that we're all going to be dead someday, like. Right now, you know, 100 years ago, people were walking around worried and self-conscious about all sorts of stuff that doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
Because they're gone. All that mattered was how they treated each other, how they responded to their God and to God, and that, you know, that was kind of the eye opener on that phrase.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you pull out of this then is too often the things on this earth become an end. So after experiencing this retreat, how did it change then the way you lived your life?
Well, I mean, I obviously I wrestled with mortal sin and death and judgment and heaven and hell in a way that gave me kind of a more eternal perspective. I was 40 years old. It was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped me to mature and grow up. But I also talk in the book about how, we need this constant metanoia. And like when you meet an evangelical, they'll tell you their conversion story. And it was like one day in, 1997, they got down on their knees and that's it. And I feel like I'm having those all the time, like every 6 months or something. And this was one of the many, but certainly one of the most powerful ones because the whole book came out of it.
Yeah. So do you find that as you were writing this, you just kind of fell deeper and deeper into your understanding of the faith and your love for the Lord?
Yeah. I mean, in my pride, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to go to France and do a retreat in French because it'll be, I've heard everything they have to say in English about the faith, and I've heard every sermon you could ever. I mean, when you work in church work, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. You feel after a while like you've heard everything, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if I do this in French, it'll be different, and it was. I don't think it was just because it was in French, but it was such a different experience of the faith. And the book Talking of Michelangelo, the title refers to this T.S. Eliot poem where Prufrock kind of wrestles with his mortality, and he sees the eternal footman hold his coat and snicker. And I feel like that's what it was for me, to really, really understand that we will die someday, and that hell is real, and that mortal sin is a possibility. I mean, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But these monks did. They weren't afraid of it, and so do the Ignatian exercises. There's exercises on hell and demons and all sorts of stuff. I mean, so it was a super powerful, book, and the fear of God. There's a chapter called The Beginning of Wisdom at the end, where the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Yes.
And the fear of God is a valuable thing.
And I think so often we try to kind of downplay what that means, right? We think of it as almost an emotional response, like we when we're afraid of something, in this world. But it's so much greater than that, because it is, and that kind of comes to, you spend some time on perfect penitence and imperfect penitence in the book, which I loved. You did such a great job with that. And I think it is that sense, right, that you may start out worrying about, oh my gosh, I'm only going to do this under obligation because I don't want to end up in hell.
Yeah.
But the more you love the Lord, you do it out of great love. It's that perfect penitence that you talked about.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing when you get there. It's hard.
Yeah.
It takes time, but you can get there.
Yeah, and I just want to tell the audience, and I said this on The Virtuous Life, when I saw the title, Talking of Michelangelo, I thought, I'm not going to, because they asked me to request books or things, and I thought, that doesn't sound like something I want to read. And then later on, I thought, I'll read it, and I loved it. I would invite everybody to get your hands on this book. A lot of depth, but an easy read. It's not like this heavy theology that you have to not understand for a while. So thank you, Peter. It was wonderful. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Pat.